So welcome to Straight Talk with Carly Alyssa Thorne. And I'm really excited today because today I have Dr. Nicola Bird. And what I love about her is that she really gets the mind, body, spirit, and she gets what transformation means. So welcome, Nicola.
Welcome, Carly. Thank you so much for having me. It's so much fun to be here.
Exactly. So first thing I want to put out there is we're both going to be talking about our own personal experiences with our clients. We encourage anybody that does need help to dial 911 or anyone else that you may need to reach out to. We encourage everybody to get help if they need it. So what we're going to be talking about today is the mind-body-spirit connection and my favorite topic in the whole wide world, which is transformation. And I'm going to share a little tidbit that most people don't know is that if you're into numerology, the number 5 means transformation. And butterflies are all about transformation from my point of view. So I'd love to know, first of all, what is your definition of transformation? And then I would love to find out what got you into psychology and the whole mind-body-spirit connection.
My definition of transformation is really the ability to plug deeper into our own personal truth. I think we're all divine sparks of light, but mindsets, negative tapes, unhealthy emotions really get in the way, like anxiety and fears really get in the way of us plugging in. So it's the ability to transform or transcend these mindsets or emotions that really keep us trapped in places that really prevent us from expressing our beauty. And that transformation is that full expression of the self.
I love that. And I also love on your website, you actually have transform, triumph, transcend. And I think it is beautiful that you have all those words. For me, everything is threes, trilogies, and those are all empowering words that you need to go through those places to get through your transformation. So what actually got you into the field of psychology and the mind, body, spirit and the whole, I guess, transformational field?
I have always been this way. I can't, by the time when I got into my teen years, I just had this constant inner urging and drive and passion and motivation to know about myself, to understand spirituality, to discover it. It was so compelling. It was all I ever thought about. And so I was quite young when I was into that drive for my growth, and I was a avid dreamer. I had recalled my dreams every night. I would write them down. I understood symbolism, the inner world, and I really wanted to know how to harness this and bring it forward. And so it really started with myself, and anyone who knew me on that level would say, what else would I have done? That was just, I was so impassioned.
Well, now here's a tricky thing, though, because it's very interesting in the world of psychology and psychotherapists, etc., and even counseling, whichever you want to look at it. I think more and more you're seeing that whole field transform where they are making the connection between the mind, body, spirit. Yet you have a lot of dogmatic, traditional counselors and psychotherapists that really just come from the Freudian or the psychology place. So how did you make the choice and distinction to focus your practice not just on traditional, but intertwining, if you will, right? Intertwining the mind, body, spirit, or spirituality aspect into your practice.
I never ever did I didn't start off in any traditional position in the first place. I was always non-traditionalist. Because I came from that already. I had been studying meditation, doing my inner work, doing all of this on my own, and went through my own personal transformation in life, a personal trauma that allowed me to tap deep and harness my own capacity. And then I started working with people, and then I did my education concurrently. So I was already there, and I went into it from that position. So I didn't go in from thinking that it was just in the mind. I was already holistic, already of that indoctrinated in that way, and really brought myself to it. So, and my understanding, and then I was working with people and bringing that forward. So I come from, I'm definitely not, conservative. I don't come from a conservative place. I definitely come from where I just couldn't understand any other way. Like nothing else made sense to me. This was so limited to just be stuck in this little talking back and forth, or just stuck in the mind. How could you change? So I also was so inner oriented. I understood that just being stuck up here, what change could I possibly really create? And that wasn't getting me anywhere. I had to go deep. I had to go inside myself. I had to move inwards and transform from within. And my journey through my dream life and that whole journey of inner work was where I started, and that was where I started my transformation. And then that went in, and that then informed the work I did. And then I created a system that to help people get inside themselves and transform within, because otherwise you're just slugging around for a very long time trying to get somewhere and putting in a lot of effort and not getting very far.
So you brought up a really good point. I think a lot of people are so much in their head, and yes, a lot of talk therapy focuses on the head or talking. And like you said, unless we get inside and we do the necessary processing, which does involve getting very deep and tapping into your emotion, which a lot of people want to stay away from because it might be painful, you really can't do the processing or the transforming piece. It takes inner work. It does take some pain, because you're looking at some things that might not be pleasant. What I'm always telling my clients is, this is the big distinguishing factor, I think, especially for clients who've had abuse, any sort of severe abuse, is they're like, well, I can't forgive that person, or I can't forgive that act. And I keep on telling them, you don't have to forgive, in other words, the actual action, but you do have to forgive the person and yourself. Because if you don't forgive yourself and the other person, you're A, giving your power to them, and two, you can never release or transform. However, I can understand their perspective on, well, I can't accept or forgive, in other words, the actual violence or that piece. That wasn't okay.
No.
And you have to give people the permission to feel that and honor that. However, they still need to be taught to process the forgiveness piece so that they can move forward. What is your philosophy on that?
No, I certainly, forgiveness is about ourselves. It frees us. It's not about the other person. When we're not forgiving, we are bound to that storyline. We're always angry. We're not healing. And I think that forgiveness is a byproduct of healing. As we heal, as we grow, and as we transform that pain, then we let go. And it's an important part of the letting go, because it changes us from within inside. And that's what the biggest part of the equation is, that without that, we are still bonded to the pain, and we're still stuck in the pain, and it doesn't serve us at all. So we definitely have to separate it from the person to what's going on in us that's toxifying us.
Now, what are some of the tips and tools that you give your clients on helping to go inside and helping to transform? I noticed that you said you created a system, and I noticed on your website you have self-imaging therapy, SIT,
Yes.
what we talked about. So how does that work, and so what are the tools and tips you give your clients?
Well, it is a complete process. So the self-imaging therapy process is a tool into the entire journey. It's the journey into the self. Anyone can and does do it. It's not a threatening place, because I'm guiding them all the way. And you brought up an important part earlier when you talked about going into the emotions. There's always this long conversation about what we think and what we believe, and there's so little dialogue about our emotional life. And if we change what we believe and change what we think, but we really can't change what we think or change what we're believing without changing our emotions and changing our body state. So, and those three, so we have to bring the two together. So the person goes into a journey inside themselves to connect with the root of the problem and work through their relationship with themselves or that story and transform it, essentially rescue themselves and heal at the core level and change on that, and then create a complete transformation. So each journey is transformative. A person will go from, say, anxiety to calm. I'm not implying that each journey rescues the person. It's not, it's consecutive, but each one is transformational in and of itself and designed to create that. So at core, it's about the relationship with the self and healing and building a loving relationship with the self.
So tying into emotion, would you not say that's also transforming behaviors? Because a lot of whether it be anger or anxiety, is behavior modification, if you will. And I think a lot of people don't realize that behaviors are tied into emotions. And that, well, like you said, when we get in touch, truly get in touch with our emotions, then we have the choice to choose to literally do things to change that behavior or stay stuck in our, whether it be victim energy or the behaviors.
I completely agree. I mean, biologically, we feel first and think after. And that's primal. Of course, if you're, and we're still functioning with a defense system that is primordial. So, in the jungle, you didn't stop to think when that lion was coming after you. You just felt and moved. And we're still the same, but we're so trapped in our head. And it's not that what we're thinking is not important. They're also symbiotic and codependent. It's not removed. But we're really just afraid of our emotions, and our brain is constantly processing all the emotions we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid our inadequacy. We're trying to avoid the things that hurt us. And then our brain just is spinning storylines to cope. And then we'll spin typically the same storylines. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. No one loves me. I'm not worthy. Kind of, and I'm not deserving. All kind of unfortunate storylines. We can spin this kind of rationale to cope with these unpleasant emotions or painful emotions or traumatic emotions, the things that make us the vulnerable emotions. And so when we can manage our emotions, our brain does become quiet. It's not fighting within ourselves to cope with all of this. So what we do need to get plugged into that and know that we can and learn how to transform those emotions. And there's so much help out there to be able to tap into our emotions and change them. But I certainly think it is the core, and it's all that we're trying to avoid.
So how do you express to your clients, this is a big one I find. I always try and tell them we're co-creating. It's a collaboration. I can't do all the work for you. And I can see where you're coming from when you're talking about this whole emotional place too, that we, as our natural tendency, is to run away and defend. So
Yes.
it's like, we need to establish that trust, that bond, and be very clear that if you're not honest with me, I truly can't help you. And it really has to be, and this is, I think, one of the biggest problems that I've seen or I've heard from clients is that when they see a traditional therapist, they're doing all the talking and there's very little interaction from the side. And so what I'm liking about the newer process of the mind, body, spirit type of psychotherapy, and it's like any sort of counseling that's more open-minded and it's mind, body, spirit based, that there really is more of a two-way dialogue and a collaboration. Have you felt that in that transition?
Oh, well, but see, I mean, from the time I began, I never had this dialoguing back and forth thingy because, like I said, it seems so, oh my goodness, I'm never like that. I don't understand it, quite frankly, because you're trying to tell a person something they can't even see. If I'm telling you, well, mommy doesn't love you, or you're telling this kind of thing or whatever, how does that help me? So yes, no, it's definitely a collaboration all the way through. I mean, in my work, I don't do as much, they talk about whatever the issue is, and then they go on the journey inside themselves. So they empower themselves. I guide them through that entire journey into themselves, in and through themselves, and through the transformation. But they dig inside they push through the defenses, get to that part, find their own power and move through. So it's empowering all the way through, and they learn those tools themselves. Because the goal is, we all want to know that we have the power to change. And then when we actually experience that change, we get to understand, wow, I'm powerful. And that's really the goal. And that allows them that, because they're being honored throughout, then that trust comes.
And I agree. I understand what you're saying about you're guiding them and they're doing the work inside. So that still is a co-creation and collaboration, because that is like the huge piece for transformation.
Oh yes, because they couldn't do that without me. And because I'm observing all the blocks they have, all the resistances, they're telling me where they're at, and so I'm able to say, okay, here's what you need, kind of guiding them all the way. I'm an essential component, and I need to be plugged into where they're at, what their needs are, listen to them, hear them, and all the way through, and then guide them towards that betterment to like, okay, these are what they're struggling with. These are the things that's needed to. So if someone is anxious, and the issue that they're having is, I don't feel loved, I don't feel deserving, then I need to hear that, and we need to find the tools to rectify that at the core level and heal at that level and create that inner transformation where they tap into their power and know that they're worthy and know they're deserving, for instance, and find that within themselves, in their mind, in their body, deep within their psyche. They resource the tools within themselves. And so absolutely, we need each other.
So I think two huge qualities for a really good collaboration is as the person in your position you're in, but I think this is really a two-way street, is listening, actively listening to whichever party's actually talking in that moment. And then further than that, I think, yes, listening is like one of the hugest components, communication, because if the communication isn't willing to be open, truthful, just really being receptive, and you're automatically putting the walls up, then it's really going to be hard to go on that journey.
No, yes. What I've designed my process, because of course the resistance is people, I mean, I'm asking people to go into their core, to face the thing that they've been trying to avoid. Which is what landed them in my office. They're avoiding, they don't want to deal with it, they're scared, all their traumas, and suddenly we're like, okay, let's go on in there. Like, whoa, this is not like, So they do have to feel some trust with me and allow that. And they put up, the defenses come up, the resistances come up, and I design all kind of things to work through to kind of get them to pass through these enormous barriers that we create. And in my experience, people are so dissociated from themselves and so disconnected, and so I design it so that people can get into themselves and get them grounded in their mind and their body and inside themselves, because if we don't get connected, we can't transform.
So one thing I'd also love to talk about is, I know you have a book called The Boomerang Effect. So I'd love to know, what if someone chose to read The Boomerang Effect? What would they get out of reading that? And first, I always love to ask this question because there's always a really good story behind it. What was the inspiration behind the title of The Boomerang Effect?
Well, the Boomerang Effect definitely came out of my work, because it's people being stuck in the same cycle and repeating the same tapes. And everybody knows that in their life, that we see the same thing cycled back and back and back, and which is pretty much what lands them back in my office. That the same behaviors repeat themselves, the same situations repeat themselves, the same relationships repeat themselves, and so we are stuck in the same process. So that's where it comes from, the cycle that we're stuck in and feel that we can't change. So that's the title.
Now I'd love for you to, I always like to get some like key bulletins so people can get an idea, if they picked up the book, what would be some of the outcomes that they might get from it?
Well, it's really because I have such a privilege of being inside people's mind body and seeing what's going on inside. What I see, what you talked about earlier, these enormous defenses, and that's the barrier that prevents us from growing. So we all think we want something, but we're not really aware of what's preventing us from having it, because some defense is getting in our way, that's trying to overprotect us from even the things that we want, because it's blanket. When we're shutting down or defending and we don't want to feel, it's not discerning. If you don't want to feel your pain, you can't feel your joy. And so even though you want something, something's getting in the way. So I explored these defenses and created personalities for them based on which we all know, the fight, flight, and the lesser known freeze. And so based on, like, again, all the journeys that people had, I put it together. And because people in the journey to themselves, everyone would say, okay, I want this. And then, but they would be in their pain and comfortable in their pain, telling me that they were safe. So if a person was anxious, they would go into their body, into that anxiety, and find themselves in that, like in a place that represented it for themselves. And and typically they all pretty much use the same symbol, which I don't impose, but there's always like hiding in some place. And then they're saying, I'm safe, but they'd be safe in the problem. And because because of the defense becomes so systemic that it becomes so overused that it becomes something that we associate as helping us, even though this fear is the one that's ending up turning in on us. So as a result, I created these personalities types, and so the person could understand the way that they were over defending themselves and over protecting, and we all do this. And understanding that helps us to actually uncover what is getting in the way of us achieving what we want. So it takes a different angle than from positive thinking. It's actually saying, here's how you're sabotaging, and here's how we can change that saboteur and become aware of that saboteur. Because these parts of ourselves, our mindsets, the defenses, we're born with our defenses, but then they become part of how we think and how we reason. And when they turn in on us and we're trying to manage our emotions from a place of defensiveness, it doesn't work, because we can't run from our emotions. We can't, or if we're fighting, we're struggling with our emotions. And if we're hiding, we're simply masking. So we're not getting away from ourselves. So they become very, very disruptive and sabotaging. That's it.
So I like about what you said is, first of all, I love archetypes, because I find that when we talk to people in archetypes, like you said, what way they're defending themselves or sabotaging themselves, it gives them an awareness. And for me, the whole key to change at all, or any transformation of any kind, is first we become clued in, we become aware of the behavior or habit. Then again, it always bottoms down to choice. We have the choice to then literally transcend or transform that behavior. And what I find, like one of the words I do not like to use, I just said it twice today, is but. I don't like the word but. And so I'm really aware of when I say it, and I usually replace buts with and. Because for me, if I say I love you but, someone's waiting for that shoe to drop. Now, if I said I love you and, they're like, okay, I love you and they know something else is coming, but it's a very softer way of saying things. And I think buts are very, for a lot of people, they immediately get defensive when they hear that word. However, it took me a long time to retrain my brain to go, and now the funny part is the minute I hear myself say it, I immediately say and. And so I think the most important key to anything that revolves change is, like you said, we have to be aware of how we sabotage stuff. We have to be aware of what type of character or defense we use in order for us to do something about it. So I think archetypes are so helpful for people.
I do too, because and in my earlier journey before I came to my work, I was into all of the positive, and I'm always been a positive thinking person. Because I've been so on a spiritual journey in my life, and I've really worked at owning my own life, but I didn't realize how escapist I was. I wanted to get to the happy place, but I didn't want to go into my shadows. And the trauma that brought me to my work, which is, the demise of my marriage. And I was married for 2.5 years, and my ex-husband was emotionally abusive, and that allowed me to find my shadows and find my fears. And I left, and I gave me that opportunity to really working so hard at myself. I've been doing all this meditation, all this inner work, and yet things were falling apart more. So I didn't realize all the ways that I was sabotaging, and I had to dig into those parts that were sabotaging. And now I go to the parts that as like you said, you start training yourself to see the ways in which I sabotage, and I'm aware of that, going, that's that defense kicking in, and I'm seduced by it, and it's trying to tell me it's going to keep me safe, but it's not. Don't be seduced. And so I can be aware of the ways that I keep getting in my own way. And once I keep clearing out of the way, then I am then where I believe is what I understand or feel to be my organic state, which is that harmony, that light. I can be in that light once I keep moving out my sabotage, because my light is my truth. It's these saboteurs on top that cloud it. And I just want to keep moving those shadows, not fighting my shadows, but educating my shadows, training them towards love versus fear or self-doubt or protectionism.
So this is both a podcast and a video cast, so people can listen or watch. And so since people that are listening can't see your lower third, I would love for you to share with people where they can find you, because I always want people to reach out to people and explore your blogs and all the other things that you do.
Right. Well, my website, I have two websites. One, my name, nicolabird.com, NICOLABIRD, like the birds that fly. And so they can find me there and all my information, and they can download a free ebook and all that good stuff, and sign up for my newsletter, all that, and get updates. And I also have a network that I'm building, Out on the Limb Network, and that brings together a collaboration of different people in wellness, and so it just lots of information, lots of insight, lots to gain from that. And I do also have a podcast, Out on the Limb, with me, Dr. Nicola Bird.
And is that on Blog Talk?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's hosted on the network. Out on the Limb Network, it's hosted there. Okay,
so if they go to BTR, Blog Talk Radio, they can search for Out on the Limb, and then it will come up. So,
and if they Google Out on the Limb Network, they will get to the network with different experts and who are providing information and wellness field.
Wonderful. I love that. So anyways, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me. We had a few challenges when we got on. I love technology. Thank you so much for your patience. It's been an absolute delight getting to know you and talking to you. As everybody knows, I put together an entire blog post which will have all of Nicola's information, her websites, her social media links, as well as the embedded video and the embedded podcast. I wish everyone to have a marvelous day. I love bringing you valuable content, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Carly.
You're welcome.